they had their presentation here tonight, but I guess it's been kind of determined that they're gonna need to go to the plan commission for a site plan and also one lot subdivision, so. You know, that'll be, I mean, they're here talking about the use and the, what they can put out there for the outdoor storage and actually the storage use, but they're definitely gonna have to move forward with the site plan and also one lot subdivision in order to put other buildings in the rear and that, so everybody's kind of on the same page with what their intentions are.
With the new owner, does it have to be reapplied for or just amended?
No, in my opinion, it's a substitution of parties, if you will. It's just a correction during the course of these proceedings over the past
Okay.
4 months. This has happened. I'd recommend it to staff if they secure an amendment or replacement to correct the record or update the record, and that is approved.
All right, thank you. Do we have a petitioner present? Good evening. My name is Philip Rejeski. I'm with Engineering and Consulting Alliance. I am here representing the owner on this project. Is the display okay down here, guys?
I think so. We can peer over if we have to.
Okay.
I can get a tripod up over there if
Oh,
you'd like.
okay. Oh, that'd be,
Yeah, I certainly
Thank you,
would
Bob.
like a tripod. This evening, we are looking for approval of the project as far as the zoning, and a special use permit is requested for this project. The special use is for outdoor and indoor storage. And as the staff had indicated, there are several issues on this property that we are prepared to resolve, but they'll be resolved with the technical staff of the city before we come back with those issues, and then we'll come back with a single lot subdivision. Currently, we have a plan. Currently, this property consists of 3 lots. We will eventually bring this down to 1 lot. And when we do that through the planning commission, we'll be addressing things like drainage, right-of-way, utility issues. We had looked at all of those issues and are prepared to address them. However, this evening, as I understand, we're just addressing the special use permit. So I am here to answer any of your questions.
okay. Have the one side plan here? Okay, but I didn't know if anybody else wants to see that. Okay. All right, do you have anything else to present at this time?
On the buildings you see here are existing buildings that will be used for more than likely this building will be used for office for the storage facility. This building, our owner is looking at maybe some indoor storage or maybe just leasing of the building as a whole. This building here is going to have storage. It's not technically indoor storage because it's really a lean-to building, but so it'll be undercover storage. And then what you see here is all the outdoor storage. Now, in the design of the outdoor storage, we have designed for ambulance and fire truck exit and entrance onto the property and fire truck route throughout the entire site. We have delineated some of the landscape areas that we will be including with this project. But we see that the layout of the property, so the layout of the property will be very much the same. But when we have a deeded recorded map, we'll have more specifications of what it is, where the property lines are affecting the layout of the landscape and any future development of the property. The property itself was formed by was a deeded formation of the lot, so the property was never mapped. And that is an important part of this project that, like I say, that will be addressed during the planning commission meeting for this.
I have a question for you, Dave. If this were a new build, clean slate, there'd be a whole list of things that they'd have to follow out of this book.
That's true.
Whatever pertains to, what is this, M1.
That's true.
So at what point are those things not applicable?
And when the plan commission determines a site plan that they can waive requirements that are contained that are maybe requested for waiver. When the one lot subdivision is presented in a way that probably is accompanied by PUD zoning, so that there can be flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain that it would be M1, it would be PUD. But we're just hearing this tonight for the first time, so those requirements would still need to be filled. And I had a quick question, so if I finish this answer, are there multiple lots in this property, meets and bounds? Was it cobbed together in?
Yes, there are
3
3 lots that make up this property. And for Commissioner, for your question, since the lot was formed as a deeded lot and not as a recorded lot, there are going to be some adjustments in the lot lines. They're probably going to be a couple of feet one way or the other, but all the interior lot lines will go away. And at that point, we can look at these offsets. There are offsets required for this zoning, and there's also landscape requirements for these zoning. And so at that point, it's really appropriate for us to look at that once we have a very precise boundary. Now, what we're asking for at this meeting is your recommendation to town council to approve this special use permit. Now, the reason why we're asking for this before we're going through the mapping process is because the mapping process is time. It does take some time, and it's relatively expensive. So what we're doing is we're not doing anything as far as adding buildings or adding on to buildings. So we're asking that the special use can get approved so that after the Tuesday town council meetings, the owners can apply for a business license and actually start business here. The advantage is that at that point, they can have income in the property while we're going through the mapping process. We see the mapping process on this particular property taking several months because all of the properties around it are deeded lots. So when we look at having a record of survey, a map survey, we're going to have to look at all those additional properties. Not only is it extensive work for us, but it's also extensive work for the staff.
and we talked about this morning, and our talk was, I mean, to utilize the front building and maybe the building in that front paved area at this point, and then he would not be able to utilize the property until this is complete. I mean, to a certain point. What point we didn't come to a determination, but I mean, again, I mean, I get I mean, we discussed the one lot subdivision, the perhaps PUD zoning or whatever's going to take place with the rest of the development of the site, ingress and egress to the trailer park, the road dedication, what's going to end up being the best way to maybe improve that traffic going up to the trailer park with some more road dedication, because they on their property, the entrance to the property on the east and also the entrance to the trailer park is an easement through this lot, basically. So,
According to the GIS, this property still goes to the center of the road also, doesn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
I guess I don't have any questions, really. I just have some concerns. You're talking about using the business as it is. We have new owners. There's a paragraph in some of this information that clearly states that there's waivers going to be needed from the planning commission. And you haven't mentioned any of that. This paragraph says, level all uneven ground on the lot, bring in the fill, provide drainage and suitable parking spaces for vehicles. I'm not sure that's really, I mean, that's a deviation from what the planning commission may or may not require.
I understand that,
And so I guess I have to ask, because it's been discussed here before, is this all going to be blacktop?
Sir?
At this,
Can you speak into the mic? We have
Oh,
a
I'm
couple
sorry.
people remote, and if you don't speak into the mic, they can't hear you. Thank
very
you.
much. At this point, we do not want to put blacktop down. The reason is that we can have some changes in the business after the map is recorded. At that point, with the mapping, we then could address several issues that need to be addressed on this property. And like the staff had indicated, the property that's between this property and the lake has really only one entrance and exit. And that's here. And that is really a dysfunctional entrance for the subdivision. So we are looking during the mapping process to have some roadway dedications that will really improve the access to that property between here and the lake, significant. And that is really does need to be done. It's just much easier for my clients to be able to do that if they can have some income from the property while we're going through the process of resolving those issues with staff and coming up with a correct map. So that is why we're asking for use of the property. And what we're asking for is to not use this building. I'm sorry.
No, I get it.
Okay. Not use this building, and this building is currently occupied by the ambulance company, but we believe that they're going to move out. And so we would not be using that building. But the rest of the property we would use for storage. And that is actually what we're asking for in the special use permit this evening, is to be able to use all the property where we show parking except these two buildings.
So right now you want to do storage, and the ambulance company is using the big building. That's what you just said.
This building, which has the ambulance company in it now, the ambulance company is contracted to be off the property on January 7th. So on January 7th, this building will be empty. We do not expect to put any more storage in that building until after we get the map recorded. That's the same thing with this building here. We don't see it leasing a portion of that. We see in the future, we could have a lease on a portion of that building and use another portion for the office for the storage facility, but we don't see us using that at this time. So essentially what we're doing is outdoor parking and parking under the shade.
So your request here, special use to operate indoor and outdoor storage facility, what you're just describing to me, if I understand it correctly, there's gonna be multiple businesses on this property, indoor and outdoor storage, and whoever you lease those two yellow buildings to. That's the intention?
It's the intention for the owners to have this as a full indoor and outdoor storage facility and not additional leasing. That's their intention. But they want to have some options to have that additional leasing if their customer base was not what they're expecting it to be. I certainly believe that their customer base will be very strong and the use of that entire property will be indoor and outdoor storage. However, they asked for the request to be able to use these buildings for lease and a lease as a portion of that if they needed that.
Well, that's an impossible request without knowing.
Well, I'm gonna tell you that this property is very, very similar to something that came through here in 2016. Residential property on 3 sides. There's barbed wire fence that they say they're gonna fix. We don't allow that anymore. We made Tom and Ed's take it down, just for example. The list of criteria for that similar property was 14 or 15 items long. The hours of operation, certain things can be stored there, certain things cannot be stored there. And what you're asking for is a bit of a,
And again,
it has no parameters.
right,
It has no,
and again, I mean, when we met this morning, my impression was that they would utilize those 2 buildings in that front piece of that lot. I don't know how you can plan to store equipment in the place that's underwater at this time until the rest of it is rectified. That it seemed to make sense to me to ask to utilize that front portion until the rest of this is complete, but to use the entire property that is right now has 3 feet of water in the middle of it and wasn't what I was under the assumption we were just talking about. That's a whole nother, obviously that whole rear of that property can't not be used until the storm drainage is taken care of, which I thought we were kind of on that same page.
and sir, there's 5 of us in this room that know that property intimately from little kids. And as I stated to the petitioners over the last 3 gatherings, the stormwater is going to be very challenging. There's some very, very expensive property just under the old railroad bed as it goes to the lake. And I have some concerns about that. I know this is a use, but this use seems to be open-ended with little criteria. And what I read here is not matching what you're suggesting. There is no doubt in my mind that they can fill this up. No doubt in my mind. I've seen it every day. I see it. The traffic in the front, be great to have that cleaned up. That'd be fantastic, fantastic. But the criteria you're asking for, I'm having a hard time wrapping my arms around.
So I just want to make something clear, and people can correct me if I'm wrong. We're talking about drainage, and I know it gets brought up sometimes that maybe that's not something we should be concerned about would be a use variance. But our ordinance book states that when we are considering a special use variance, we also can impose conditions that would ensure adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or necessary facilities will be provided. So I think we have every right to discuss those things here. And
And commissioners, please know that I am fully prepared to discuss all that this evening if you guys would like. I certainly could.
Well, based on what I was talking about, having residential property on 3 sides, we really don't have any hours of operation unless I missed them here. I just there's so many pieces of this puzzle that need to be dialed in to preserve the surrounding property. I don't know based on what's here. I mean, I'm not going to write it for you. I mean, this is not a land development class, but there are a whole bunch of things that need to be addressed, and this is deferral, number 3. Maybe.
Maybe. The question I have is on the mapping, just say we do give it favorable. What's the time frame on that?
The driveway in front of this property is really affected by that mapping. And it is really detrimental to this property. So my owners have a real understanding that mapping is critical for this project. So we expect the mapping to start in January. And the process when we go through the mapping, the process that we're going to go through, Commissioner, that some of the things that you had mentioned, especially things that have to do with engineering, drainage, right of way and such. All those things will be addressed during that process. And we expect that to start in January.
And finished by when?
I'm sorry?
And finished by when?
It really determines the staff's ability to get the information that they need. We are prepared now to have the drainage issues and the right-of-way issues addressed. However, the right-of-way issues are really subjective to the staff's approval. So we have some ideas on what we can do that would be affordable to our clients and that would be beneficial to the city. And so during that initial submittal in January, we're going to address those things with the city. And some of those things may have to come in front of this commission to get approval. So we plan to push that mapping process as quickly as we can, but we also know that the mapping and the issues that we have to address are going to take some time.
Well, if I'm to vote for approval, I need a drop dead date because I can foresee this prolong, and 5 years from now, we're still waiting for the mapping to be done. So I would request a drop dead date that it's going to be done by this date, or you have to cease and desist your business there. That's one thing. 2 things, if you're going to have more than one building in there, you got to come before this board. I mean, more than one business, you got to come before this board for special use, or
Right.
dual use, or triple use, or whatever you
Right.
plan on doing in it. And a lot of this stuff we're talking about has to go before the plan commission. And we can't actually say, yeah, go ahead and utilize the property, without knowing how you're going to treat drainage and the road and all of this.
Right.
Now, I'm all for seeing that business, in there and up and running and running well. But we have certain criteria that has to be met. And I don't think we're getting the answers we need tonight.
Well, like I say, I am fully capable of answering any of the drainage or right-of-way issues this evening. We know exactly what it is that we are doing to resolve any of those issues. And I am fully capable to help.
But telling us what you're gonna do is different than showing us what you're gonna do. And when you show us what you're gonna do, it goes right in the record, and we can come back in 5 years and say, you didn't do this,
I understand.
or you did do this.
I
So
understand.
that's the problem I see. And a lot of this would have to be shown to the plan commission, not only to us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
So like so many other parcels in Cedar Lake, this is classic Cedar Lake. And when you look at this, hear the presentation, know the property, and I agree with here, a number of people in this room know this property pretty intimately. You start with the zoning district classification, it's wrong. The zoning district, you have a petitioner with the use that needs to be in front of you. The zoning district needs to match or at least come somewhere close to the use proposed, the storage, et cetera, et cetera. And perhaps the activities in the buildings, or the structures, or structures to be constructed. A large enough parcel, more buildings could be constructed. Two, the right zoning district classification selection is awfully important here. Mentioned just a bit ago, a PUD, perhaps that would be appropriate because encompassed within that would be the development plan, the agreement. It would be embedded in the ordinance. It would be considered, adopted by the town council, and there'd be a game plan. The subdivision component of this is also important. I know there are multiple buildings on the property. The ingress and the egress plays a role in thinking about what the subdivision plat, as we call it, might be or should be considered to be. And I appreciate hearing about your candor about the multiple meets and bounds lots that need to be cleaned up into a subdivision. I don't know if it's a one lot subdivision or it's multiple. I don't know that as I
It's
sit
one
here.
lot.
Well, that's right now. Talk about planning and proper planning and the things that should be considered. So you have everything here. You have, zoning, you have the subdividing, you have the platting components and details. And all of that connects back into the question you asked me before, Nick, about the items in this book. Yes, all the items, you have to read the book by its entirety, and everything between the covers is in play. So that would apply to the use. Final comment. It appears tonight that the presentation is for the approvals to catch up to the use. Use is going to continue without the approvals being in hand, but they're going to work on it. That's kind of backwards, if you will. And not normal, either here or any other place I practice.
So my question is, with all this, these are details, but they're important details to me. If everything applies in this book, at what point do we start talking about, the petitioner is requesting a developmental variance because they don't want a blacktop, or they don't want to do this, or don't want to do that with improvements to the property that are in our ordinance?
Well, if in fact this were a petition for a PUD, a zoning district change that would have within it the development plan, then that could easily fit in the development plan or the development agreement. If it isn't, and a PUD is not the zoning district of choice or application, or to remain M1 or C2 or whatever it were to become, then it would be subject to the waiver jurisdiction of the plan commission on subdivision plans, or could be, such that asphalt would not be needed, either ingress, egress, parking, whatever. Again, not a stance in the position to take it by either the BZA plan commission or town council in this town from day one.
So at this point, I'm looking at an M1. I don't know what the plan commission is going to do. So is that something that we should legitimately be concerned about? Is certain aspects of the development of it? how do we make a determination on this if we don't know what the zoning is gonna be?
If you were in fact to consider tonight certifying a recommendation to the town council on the special use variance, which it should be just a use variance. It should, at least one condition or contingency should be approval of all other land use approvals required by the planning commission and or town council. That would tie to your actions, the advisory recommendation, the necessity, the mandatory necessity of the condition of the developer consultants meeting all other town requirements. They would all be done.
I know it's gonna come to the town council, which I'll have an opportunity to address. But we have a lot of kids that are in front of that property that catch a bus. And if you start having traffic coming in and out of there, what is the safety for these kids that are out there waiting for their bus to pick them up?
And I'm glad you brought that up because we're going to talk about that later on tonight.
All right.
What you're requesting here is not what I heard 3 visits ago. I heard a 1 year, 2 year, we're going to do this. 3 year, we're going to do that. 4 year, we're going to do that. 5 year, we're going to do that. To your question. That's what I heard originally. Now it's different again. So I don't know what to think here. I really don't. I mean, there's no hours of operation here. You know what the hours of operation are going to be?
Generally 7 to 7.
7 days.
7 in the morning till 7 in the evening.
How many days for 7 days?
And Commissioner, if I could speak here, I understand that you did hear things differently. My clients are not, they're really experienced in this kind of development. That's why they took the move to hire our firm to come in and present this and look at the overall engineering on this project. We've done that. We feel comfortable with the project. We feel comfortable with the drainage, and we feel comfortable with the right of way. I think it's going to be a real advantage to the city. So our firm has a lot of extensive experience in this kind of development. And so if we could ask you please to try and forget what happened in the first 2 meetings. Now it will be our firm in front of you throughout this project.
Do you have phases you're gonna do it in now? Like they were talking before, 3, 4, 5 phases?
No, in fact, we are looking at doing it in one phase, what you see here now, which would be used between now and when the map is recorded, and then make any adjustments to the site once the map is recorded. So it's really not phases. It's us using the property, using a property that's really has some imprecise property dimensions, and then making adjustments to say the size of the parkings and where they're located once we have really good property, recorded property. And what we're doing here, the work to do it is very extensive because all the properties around it are deeded properties. For us to go to do that, for our clients to retain us to do that work, it's going to be very significantly beneficial to this whole area between the main road and the lake shore.
And we're all for that, and I have no doubt that that's what you're going to do. But we still have to be protected to see that it gets done, seeing that it gets done. Now, are you asking to utilize all this property now or just a portion?
We're actually asking for all of the exterior parking, but not use of the buildings.
So you want a use of 3 separate lots right now.
They want to use it as it is, but not the buildings.
And one lot is right here. One lot carries this area, and another lot has a smaller portion down here, and the rest of it is one lot. So yes, the to combine those lots into one lot is really important. And it is, again, something that's very necessary in the mapping process.
I want to interrupt you just for a second. I mean, we met today and I discussed this with you, me and you sat across from each other. I said clearly that, you know, if you were going to present using a portion of this property with your plan, you know, like, you know, I even said, be prepared to come in here and say, you know, we're willing to utilize a portion of the property and explain your situation where, you know, you guys can utilize that building where the ambulance guys are, and maybe the front portion of that property. But I explained to him there had to be a definite line and definite area that would not be used until this one lot subdivision and this site plan was approved at the plan commission for the drainage and for all of the other concerns that have been brought up. And Nick, your contingency on them having to go to the plan commission for a site plan is you addressing those water concerns. But we don't have our engineers at the BZA to deal with his technical aspect of a site plan until we come to the plan commission. And that's what this needs to do. I mean, there's definitely issues on this property that need to be addressed. But I mean, my understanding this morning was, you know, that there'd be a line across where the flooding and the problem areas are that wouldn't be utilized until the site plan and the one lot subdivision are done. I mean, and again, I mean, I agree with what these guys are saying. If you're asking to use the whole property and have 150 spaces, and then what is to push it along to that next process? You know what I mean? That's kind of.
How does that work? Do you have, you know, how many spots that you have? Just say it's 150 for the sake of conversation. So you expect to have that, because we know it's going to fill up. It's going to get used.
We do know it's
So
going
at
to fill
some
up.
point, that place is going to be entirely filled, and then the plan commission may or may not make you put in stormwater paving, and now you expect to boot all these customers out to do that? I mean, that doesn't seem very,
Who do you think, if there's a drop dead date that's not met, who's gonna make them get rid of all their customers and cease business?
I understand.
This, as Mr. Austin said, this is way backwards. The buggy's way before the horse. I know exactly what they want to do. I know exactly what they want to do.
I mean, this was our discussion this morning, is to utilize that front little paved area and have an isolated space, you know, just that little space until the rest of this is achieved, because, or else, like you guys said, there's no, I mean, why would you ever finish it? I mean, if you have 120 spots, you got stuff parked in there, then you can't finish it because stuff's parked in the space.
We have a parking lot now that somebody stood there and told us is going to be taken care of in a few years. It's been 5. There's nothing to do. There's nothing we can do to get this done.
No.
And you've submitted almost nothing as far as the business goes. I see boats, trucks, cars. What does trucks mean? Is that semi-trailers? It has back trucks? Is that me boxes, shipping containers? I mean, stacked 3 or 4 high. I mean, it doesn't say you can't, which for some people means you can. And again, we have residential property on 3 sides. And I would not want to do that to them or make a decision that would in any way depreciate the adjacent properties.
And Commissioner Wilkening, and staff, I certainly understand where you guys, how you are addressing this. I did have that discussion with staff about limiting where it is on the property that we would utilized for outdoor parking and covered parking until we had that map done. And with discussion that I had with my owners, they asked me to be able to use all the exterior parking. But I'll tell you, we would not be objective to limiting the use of that property, say to the northern half of the property. We would certainly do that, but please know that the flooding that was in the interior of the property, when they tore the buildings down that were in there, that eliminated that because they took the concrete out too. So we feel the property doesn't have flooding issues like it had before. However, what I would ask of the commissioners is to allow me to delineate an area this evening that we would not use, and then that would not be used until after the property is properly mapped. So if I can show you that delineation line now, I would appreciate it, and it may feel more comfortable with the commissioners to approve our use.
So when you say map, are you including any improvements that the plan commission is gonna require of you? Like like I said, if there's paving and drainage. So are you asking that as soon as this gets mapped, you're talking about with everything cleaned up with the lots in a one lot subdivision, and you want to have approval to use the rest of it, regardless of whether the requirements of the plan commission as far as the developmental stuff goes? Is that what you're telling me? So in theory, it could, if they ask for it to be paved, they ask for stormwater. In theory, you could have that lot filled up once the mapping's done and not have, I mean, these are plan commission members. That's why I'm looking at these guys, but you could be operating that thing full bore without some of that stuff met. Is that what you're telling me?
The drainage and the grading on the property is being addressed now. We expect that to be completed by the middle of next week. And because the grading is not all that extensive.
I don't mean to cut you. I just need a yes or no on that.
Yes, we plan on addressing everything that the planning commission asked us to address.
You can't use it.
Prior to using every spot on that lot, you will have everything completed.
As I spoke before, we are perfectly willing to take the south half of the lot and eliminate that from any use until the map is recorded and all the items.
So your answer is yes, then. Yes, you would be using it even if it wasn't fully approved the way the plan commission wanted. And I wouldn't be for that. Okay, I'm just being honest with you.
Are you scheduled with the plan commission next week?
We are not. We actually will be have to address issues with the staff before we could put together a map that we feel comfortable submitting to the planning commission. Now, the reason I had the meeting with the staff this morning was just that. I got them I let them know that we wanted to address issues before we submitted a map, and I think the staff was feeling comfortable with that.
The staff was feeling comfortable with a partial, like, and I mean, I was talking the front paved area, none of the, I wasn't considering gravel and part that, and I understand there was a big hole in the center of the property, which was why there looked like there was flooding issues. I mean, it was basically a bowl. It was a hole that was full of water.
Yeah.
But in any regard, that's stone gravel area, and there's obviously by you filling in that, just by you guys filling in that area, we don't know if there's anything negatively going to be affected now from, I don't think there is, because obviously that was just a hole that We don't know that.
What was sent to us for stormwater last week showed just sheet flowing off the property. There's no control. It was just high to low. I'm not sure that's a stormwater plan. And if it's blacktop, that's not gonna happen. You said grading, you just mean filling up that low spot with water, with gravel, right?
No, we were asked to address the draining on our plan, the drainage on our plan, and that's exactly what we did. In fact, this here is a drainage plan. It shows that all of the water that enters the property would be sheet flowing to the other end of the property. Now, as you know, in the state of Indiana, we're required to accept stormwater onto our property where it historically enters our property, and to release the stormwater where it historically releases. But it's not just the fact of releasing it where it historically releases, but it has to have the same character. And the character we have for flows on this property that flows up towards the south are sheet flow. And the sheet flow is what our neighbors to the south of us are expecting to get from the property. That's what they've always got historically. What we've done is this portion of the property has a low, almost swampy area to it. This portion of the property, south of the property, has some mowed lawn. So what we are doing is we're bringing the water so it all flows and is released within this area, and it is all released in the character of the historic flows. It's all released in a sheet flow manner, and it's released in an area that goes right into a drainage ditch that goes south towards the lake, and then it goes underneath the old railroad bed into a well-defined channel that goes out there.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
At the risk of telling you I'm feeling like snake oil is being sold. First of all, let's clarify map and plat. He's calling it map. What we're talking about is a plat. One lot subdivision, two lot subdivision, whatever a plat. Plat means compliance with the town subdivision control ordinance. The town subdivision control ordinance has the design criteria appended to it by the stormwater regulations ordinance. Those are laws and requirements for development of property in a subdivision in this town. So sheet flow, non-sheet flow, I don't really care. Legally, I don't really care. You can try and sell that if you want, but we have stormwater regulations that Donald LaFont will check and tell us whether they're met or they are not. And if we buy this, that's a big if we buy this and you allow sheet flow, historical, prehistorical, post-historical, you will find yourself in the same spot this town found itself in Wicker Meadows, where flow off and flow in is not protected. So we need to remember, map is not a map in Cedar Lake or the state of Indiana, it's plat. Plat begs the compliance with a subdivision control ordinance that's duly established in effect here for a long time. It connects to the stormwater regulations ordinance, and it's all required to be complied with for development of land here.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea of having this business there. I'm just opposed to the order of operations you're asking us to give you.
Can I, I'm sorry for my tardiness, but I don't mean to oversimplify it, but is the petitioner now requesting use before a plat is approved? Is that what we're up against?
Partial use that we don't know where the line is.
Okay, because normally the nature of the process is the petitioner wants to do something, he needs to get permission from this board to do so, and then it goes through the proper channels through the rest of the channels through the town via plan commission, plats, and a lot of the things that we're talking about here. So I just wanted to get a clarification. Is it as simple as a favorable or unfavorable from this board is contingent on the plan commission approving and reviewing everything, and then if it doesn't get through plan commission, it doesn't happen. If it does, then we're good.
I guess, I mean, all this is kind of arose from the condition of the property. I mean, if this entire parcel was, if this property was paved in its current condition, in its current zoning, and he came in for a special use for storage, depending on your guys' negotiations with what could be stored and what could be there on that site, that would be what he would need. Since this has been brought here, I mean, the drainage stuff has been recognized, the future potential of wanting to add other buildings, which then requires that one lot subdivision. That's what we talked about today. I mean, it's kind of, you know, if it was in condition to use today, it wouldn't really require a one lot subdivision because it's an existing piece of property, but to use this use in a B2 zone, it would need a special use.
Well,
So it's kind of it's kind of evolved into, you know, like Dave said earlier, ultimately it's going to end up being probably a PUD one lot subdivision with a guaranteed, you know, a layout, a use of future planned buildings, planned parking, so on and so forth. But I mean, they started out coming with a B2 piece of property for storage. So I think I think that the owners want to know that the storage, the use of the storage is going to be, you know, a potential. And again, I haven't heard about, you know, what you're planning on storing, the number of units you're storing, such as we talked to today. Like, you know, like I told you, they're not going to want construction equipment. They're not going to want, you know, whatever. But we're kind of in that phase between if this site didn't have the drainage problems and it was paved and they had the area to park, they're needing special use. But being the site the way that it is and their future plans, they need to, I mean, that was my thought of being able to utilize the front little part of the property while they're getting their one lot subdivision together and probably their PUD zoning. And, you know, very well, the plan commission people, what comes along with that are these, you know, the rest of the site development and the waivers and the drainage and, you know, everything. Again, you know, the technical aspect of the drainage and the sheet, you know, whatever the drainage is, that's the plan commission's deal. We have the staff here to deal with that technical aspect of the planning requirements, all of that stuff. So I guess, I mean, I see, you know, I didn't hear you present anything about what was intended to be stored there. Like, I mean, is the plan at someday to have, you know, 4 buildings there with, you know, 80 indoor storage spaces and 60 outdoor storage spaces, or haven't really heard any of the or the plan, you know what I mean? So I just feel that we're kind of, everybody's kind of, and I get your guys' concern with
We're putting
saying,
it together up here.
right, we're trying to piece together, and I am too now, because I mean, what he's saying here, from what we talked about this morning, and again, all these things have to happen in order for this property to completely be utilized. My suggestion to him today in discussing with, like, hey, if you maybe wanted to use this front little part of the property just to get the ball rolling, which I get it, you know, you're trying to buy a piece of property, establish the use for it, and he's got a little bit of area there that does meet that requirement for that special use. If he doesn't, I mean, if he just was using that hard surface area in the building for storage, it now meets that requirement just for a special use without a site, without any of this other stuff we're talking about. Once you utilize the whole property, now you are opening up this, what we're talking about now for this subdivision. And again, it's up to you guys. It is all the same piece of property, but if you're only using the piece of property that can be used, you know, the special use is what they need. But once you do go to adding the buildings and the what, you know, once you add the buildings, you now move into the one lot subdivision requirement. Then we have the dedication of the right of way. There is a lot of issues around that property to try to get in and out, and it's not just a simple.
But all those issues don't come into play for the use variances requested. I have no problems with a favorable recommendation for the use of this property. Have none whatsoever. I think it's a good use. It's vacant, it needs to be utilized, okay? But I do have a problem with him utilizing that before it gets to the plan commission. So, I mean, if the owner needs to know, is this board going to approve the special use variance? I would say 99% sure, yeah, we are. So then they can go ahead and move forward and get their plat or get their single, lot subdivision or PUD or site plans, whatever they want to do. But I am not comfortable with allowing them to do business there on a small portion or all of it or half or what have you until they go through the plan commission and get everything met like we've been discussing for the last hour. That's I would vote favorable, but all contingent upon getting through the plan commission, and I want a date of when you would have your plat done and because we could wind up in the plan commission and getting deferred because I've been on about 8 years and people come in all the time and don't have the proper paperwork, and we tell them what they need and they come back and they still don't have it or what have you. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I'm not saying you look like you're a professional, even with the mask, the Lone Ranger mask, but those are my thoughts. I'm in favor of the approval, but not utilizing the property until it gets to the plan commission.
And that was kind of what the whole ask was, is to use part of it. That was just part of it.
But John, are you okay with them getting, if we give a favorable recommendation, the town council approves it, the plan commission, you guys, say you need to do X, Y, Z, are you okay with after that, them filling that lot with cars, trucks, whatever, before any type of developmental requirements are met on that property, if you guys impose anything? No. So it needs to come to completion, that project, before it's
Or
completely
just like
utilized.
any subdivision going up, you got 3 phases to it.
Yeah.
Look how they built Beacon Point.
Well, he's not proposing a phase though anymore.
I know it, but I'm just saying, we in the plan commission may say, you can do this, but are you gonna do it all in 1 year? No. Well, then you're gonna phase it. So they tell us what your phases are. First year, second year, third year.
And you also get a surety of plan. Get improved maturities.
Yes, correct.
But I guess the issue at hand is that we still haven't heard, like the previous outdoor storage areas that we do have in town, we haven't heard that discussion of how many outdoor spots are to be, we don't really have that.
We don't have the business plan.
Yeah.
We don't have the business plan, and so there's no surprises. I'm gonna ask one more time. When will that lot be blacktopped, hypothetically?
If the planning commission asks us to blacktop the lot, my owners are fully cooperative on doing that. They would do that. They would expect that. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm one of the owners.
Yes, I understand. Come on up. Sorry, Mr. President.
That's okay.
All we want to do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Oh, my name is Bob Porter. Address is 5705 West 45th Avenue, Gary, Indiana. Okay. Anyway, all we want to do, we talk about these phases. If we get in here, okay, and we do whatever we need to do, no big deal. If we need to make that a one-lot subdivision or PUD, whatever that is, that's what we have to do. We don't care. We'll do it. All we want to do is to get some boats, RVs. There's nothing like, I don't want no semis in there, and I don't want no hazardous stuff in there.
And sir, I totally believe you.
Yeah.
But
we don't
until
want that.
until it's on paper,
Okay,
it
what do you mean by
means,
on paper? What do we have to do? Tell me what we have to do.
no, but see, that's what I'm saying. This is not what we do here. This is not a land development class.
Okay.
We have people that come here to that podium, week after 2 weeks after 2 weeks after 2 weeks for years, working on a project piece at a time. I know what you want to do there. I totally get it.
Mhm.
I agree with John. But getting in there and working on it
Okay.
without a drop dead date I'm not comfortable with
Okay,
it.
a drop dead date for what?
It'll be
Open up?
finished. It'll be finished.
Oh, it'll be.
Everything will be
finished.
finished by a certain date.
Okay, now what happens if we just get in there and we just do the outside storage? And he's talking about like those buildings that are there,
Mhm.
okay? My thought was, when this ambulance company is out, okay, maybe we can have some inside storage in that building. Okay, a lot of people like their stuff inside. Now, I went to the place behind, they got some inside storage for people's boats. They bring them in from October 15th, I believe, till May 1st. Okay, and they stay in their buildings. Inside storage, they call it. Inside storage or covered storage or outside storage. Okay, so that building would be used for something like that. Okay, but now say if the outside storage, there's not a whole lot of outside storage places, a lot of them probably built units,
Mhm.
you know? So say this thing, we just leave it the way it's stoned. We're gonna stone it. We're gonna mark it off. How we're gonna do that, I'm not really sure. We'll mark it off.
That was another
Where
question I had.
spaces are at, okay? But say that goes and it stays full. There's no need to put a building. Maybe we decide not to put a building. You know, but later on down the road, say 5 years down the road, 3 years down the road, we don't know how it's going to be. I know Cedar Lake's building up big time. But then maybe later on, we come before you guys again and say, okay, you guys, now we would like to put the building. We can't really give you a date though when we're gonna try and do that. All depends on how it goes. You know, all the rest of them around here are all those little units. You know, we were more just for the outside stuff for right now. And maybe that goes good. I think there's a lot of boats around here. A lot of people moving in around here. You know, campers, RVs, stuff like that.
You have no idea how many boats leave town
I
every fall.
believe it. I believe it.
You have no idea. You really don't. But what you're discussing here is a concept of
Mhm.
the property
Mhm.
that we've heard several other times.
Okay.
Now we're getting some material here. However, there's nothing on paper. And to use part of it, we don't know what part of it.
So this,
And-
this is not what you're looking
Well, that's
Well,
fantastic. And
it's helpful, sure.
that's absolutely fantastic.
for. Okay.
But the business plan, you know,
Okay.
we're this is what we're gonna do, this is how we're gonna do it, and, you know,
Okay.
in basic.
Yeah, and whatever we need to do first, if we can't do something, we'll get that done first. You know, oh, you guys are happy. You guys are happy, we're happy.
So just, I hate to keep beating this drum, but clarify for me, please, exactly how you would like to see this, what you're requesting here. Because your representative was saying using part of the property, then he said using the entire property. I mean, what exactly are you guys looking for?
We want to use all of it. Okay, so in order for us to use all of it, what do we need? And we'll do it. What do we need to do first?
Unfortunately, that's something that this board, we're not supposed to be negotiating.
No, I'm not, I'm just asking what we have to do.
Okay, well, what you're asking to do, or what you're asking the town to provide is, and Dave, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but as it's been said before, you've got the apple cart in front of the horse here. You should be making this presentation at the planning commission and getting all of your little wants and needs in order, and drainage, and all this stuff done in a working environment that the planning commission does, rather than being here in front of us.
Gotcha. The word before you guys look at the world.
I believe so.
Okay. Okay, so we need to work with you guys, right?
You need,
Yeah, and
you need,
again, I guess again, an understanding of the your entire plan is what needs to happen here, because there's a lot of different roads to go down depending on, you can't just, I mean, if you're here to do what you're saying, you're gonna be re-advertising, ask these guys for outdoor storage in a gravel parking lot with no drainage, which isn't gonna happen.
So we
And
have,
that's the problem with trying to piecemeal, is that once you have outdoor storage, you're gonna be required to pave that rear area. Once you're gonna be required to pave that rear area, then you're gonna have to deal with the drainage. You know, I mean, it just keeps. So at some point in time, practicality has to come into play, and you need to start and have everything done that you need to do, so you're not doing this.
Correct.
We've been doing for the last hour and 10
Correct.
minutes. We
Yeah.
can't-
Yeah.
We've been just, I've watched the clock go around twice.
Yeah.
and we're still-
Yeah. Exactly.
and I don't want you to think that we keep moving the line.
Right.
Because we're not moving the line. This is just way different than what we usually do. And because we know what can happen and has happened, we're a little leery of things like this.
Oh, I believe it, sure. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, this is Rick Everly. Can I ask a couple of questions and make some observations, please?
Are you a remonstrator?
He's a town manager.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, okay, I didn't catch the name, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
we haven't met yet, Mr. Chairman. First of all, it sounds to me from Mr. Rajewski's comments that perhaps the request is being changed on the fly. I think we need to go back and recognize that what the advertised request was, which was for indoor and outdoor storage of boats, RVs, cars, and trucks, period. If there's any other businesses or uses being proposed on the property, the advertisement doesn't cover those. So we're just talking about indoor and outdoor storage, number one. So the use of, and I think Tim was surprised a bit by that in terms of the potential uses of the front building or buildings, that they simply, nothing other than outdoor and indoor storage have been identified. You also, I'm not sure what's on the board in front of you because I can't see that from my vantage point, but I do have a drawing in front of me that shows me that there are going to be a total number of spaces of 119, with 28 of those being RV, boat, and trailer. 91, another 91 being a combination of boat and trailer, and then 4 customer parking. If you were of a mind to approve a plan like this, you could certainly make the approval contingent or conditioned upon that plan, presuming we're all looking at the same plan. You can also, John raised some good points about timing. John, you can set the time. You can tell these folks that they have to get their approvals before the plan commission within whatever, give them 6 months, a year, whatever you're comfortable with. And if they don't meet that, then they're, and David can tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, but you can set that time limit. And if they don't meet that, then the special exception becomes null and void. And Nick made some good points too about any potential development standards. I haven't heard any of that yet. Does this property have to be paved in order to be a storage business? If it does, that's a development standards variance that's not been requested. Doesn't mean it has to be requested now. I understand that the petitioner wants to know if they can use the property for indoor and outdoor storage. I understand that. The rest of the technical things could be handled later. David, I think, mentioned the possibility of this being a PUD, and others have said the same thing. I need to ask, how big is the property? If it's not at least 10 acres, it can't seek a PUD zoning under our zoning ordinance. Is it 10 acres or more?
That would require a developmental variance also. If we're less.
Exactly. And I don't know how big the property is. Is it, the owner's there, is the property 10 acres? I can't, if somebody answered, I couldn't hear.
2.25 acres.
I'm sorry, sir. One more time, please, sir.
2.25 acres.
Okay, so it's not 10 acres. So it doesn't meet the criteria even for a PUD. A PUD would have been the cleanest way to go with this development, because there are so many factors that we're all concerned with here. But the PUD requires them to do what they're, and please understand, I understand why they don't want to go through all of this planning. They could go through all of this that you're asking them to do, and then you could turn them down for their use. And if you don't, the council could turn their use down. So that's a lot of money spent not knowing whether they're going to be allowed to do what they want to do in terms of the use. But the PUD is the same way. If they go for PUD zoning, they have to have 95% of their ducks in a row in order to get that. So that means all the engineering, the platting, the use, identifying whether this is paved or not paved. There's a lot of work that they have to do in order to get a PUD. And I understand they want to know first, are they going to be able to use the property for what they're requesting before they go through all of that engineering and meeting those technical conditions. But again, back to John's point, you can put a time limit on them. You can tell them they have to go through this process and get their plan commission approvals in whatever, a year's time, less time, whatever you are comfortable with, if you're even of a mind to consider a favorable recommendation. But just keep in mind that this is zoned M1, and any use in an M1 zoning district has to come before you for this kind of an action or approval, unless they go for a PUD rezoning, and then all of this that you're discussing becomes moot. Because then it happens at the plan commission level and ultimately at the council level.
Mr. Kubiak, your understanding from today's discussions that the paved area shown on this picture here, you had said it was the paved area that we're looking at here is 19 spaces.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I talked to him about maybe he asked me about possibly utilizing a portion of the property well, you know what I mean, so they can be getting some positive, something happening there while they were spending money on getting the rest of the site developed. That's what we just discussed, and I just suggested that be asked of you guys to maybe draw a line, you know, because I know the time frame thing is tough, you know, and as well, just like John said, you know, you could take, you know, somebody could say, I'm going to have my site plan ready in 2 weeks, and they come on the agenda and we don't see it for 3 months because whatever happened. So that was just my suggestion that maybe, you know, if they kept on that paved area, which was already, you know, it was ready in shape to accept some storage there, that maybe you guys would be okay with possibly, you know, drawing a line across there and saying you guys can utilize, you know, that big building and that front area while you move forward. But again, there has to be some kind of timeline or a line that you can't use any of the other property until things that are done, such as the drainage and the asphalt, you know, happen. And that was just it was just something to run by you guys to maybe try to help these guys get started and get in going in a positive direction. But again, the use in this property is pretty important to these guys to keep spending the money on the site plan and the rest of the engineering of the property to know that, you know, that the BZA is going to be favorable for this indoor and outdoor storage use. And again, you know, the plan like Rick just read off, you know, that is their plan as of now, is those numbers of outdoor things stored on this property. So
my train of thought was running along with what Mr. Everly said. Grant them the special use variance based on what they're requesting here. but everything contingent upon getting through the plan commission. Okay, now I don't know if they're talking about surveying it and drawing new lines and putting everything down on paper for, you know, a plat or a site plan. And I would like to see all that done before they start using it. But so the gentleman feels comfortable
Right.
to go ahead and open his wallet, I would say yes. Tell him, yes, we're gonna allow him to do this. But he can't do it until he meets all that other criteria. And that should have been explained to him eons ago when he started all this stuff. Someone said piecemeal in it.
And again, I mean, he's here for that for that use on this property, which is this use, no matter what he does in this one zoning district, he has to have that use.
Yeah,
So-
and what I'm saying is,
I mean,
yes,
so your
that's-
approval is contingent upon a site plan and a one lot subdivision.
meeting there, all the criteria the plan commission is gonna set forth once he brings this stuff in front of the plan commission. Because he can't go any further without going before the plan commission. And we have to know everything we talked about, the plan commission needs to know.
Correct.
And once he meets all that, then
You can use it.
he can, and it's
I just-
approved,
I
then he
mean, I
can go
just
ahead.
suggested asking to utilize that front paved area as a option for them, that's all. I get it, if you guys don't want them to use it at all.
I
until
don't
it's-
want to use it at all. I mean, now he's piecemeal use, and then he's got his foot in the hole. Now he's gonna dig another hole and then a third hole, and all of a sudden he's at the back of the property. I don't want to see that. If he's serious about developing, which he is, then put your ducks in a row and develop it.
I'm with you, John. I feel like doing a piecemeal puts the town in a bad position, puts his customers in a bad position. You know, if they have to be moved out in order to make improvements and himself. I just don't think.
And I would also say that you should, to get all this done, I mean, it's getting into winter now, but in a year's time, you should have all this ducks in a row and his drawings,
Right,
and
I agree.
I mean, a year is plenty of time. You know, I mean,
I don't think we're gonna have much for the summertime, you know, I mean, people, I don't know how many people, if you guys even allow people to store their boats in there. I know so many subdivisions have little plants here, I mean, do they allow their boats to sit in their driveway?
some do, some don't.
Yeah, so see, they gotta have a place to put it.
I understand all
But
that.
that'd be fine, maybe that's the next summer. you know. But
Or if they're not
to do,
storing
I
their,
have no problem with that.
or if they're not storing their boat there, then they're storing their trailer.
Yeah.
They may store their trailer in a spot.
Who knows if they're doing, who knows if they're storing.
All right.
Now, these 4 customer parking out front there, that's the location where these parents come and park their vehicles and then they pick their kids up. So where are we going to have these people pick their kids up?
That's plan commission.
Are they-
That's plan commission. I'm tired of talking about, we're not gonna put the park in, we're gonna do this, 'cause that's plan commission, and I'll be talking about that when he shows up to plan commission. Right now, I want to get, you know, are we gonna give them a yes, or are we gonna give them a no? That's what I want to know. And a time frame to me is 1 year.
Perfect.
That's
Sounds like a motion.
Or less.
I'll make a motion.
We haven't got to the demonstrators yet, have we?
We have not gotten your demonstrators.
Hard to believe. We've been here a while.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We waited as long as we could.
Okay. Can you have a seat for just a minute? I don't know if we have anybody here, but do we have any remonstrators for this variance? Any remonstrators for? Any remonstrators against this variance? Anybody online?
Not for this item.
Okay. Nothing in print form or email that came across on this item for remonstration?
No.
All right, being none, we'll close the public portion of this hearing. Building department? Other than what's been hashed over a couple times already?
So I just have, I know it's been exhausting on everybody, but I just got a couple questions on what's the total number of spots you're gonna have?
There's 119 on there.
119 spots.
Correct.
And hours of operation from 7 AM to 7 PM.
That's pretty much what we've come up with. We've talked to other people that are doing this, and that's pretty much how they do it.
Are you going to be staffed during that 12 hours a day, or is it going to be automated?
It's gonna be an automated gate. Yeah, with a key card, you know, you can get it out when you want.
So no access after 7 o'clock at night?
If you have a key card, you'll be able to get in. But a lot of the places now, their gate will just stay open from 7 to 7. Okay, but a lot of people, they're out in their boats till 9 o'clock at night. Maybe they want to put it in at night, so they'll have a key card to get in. And then the gate will shut after they get in. And then there'll be an eye, when you want to get it back out, the gate will open for them out, and they go out.
So people can get in and out 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I would say. I don't know who's gonna, you know, I don't know.
So the hours of operation are concerning what? 7 AM to 7 PM,
That's when we kind of figured the gate would be open.
but it's accessible 24 hours. The hours of operation are really irrelevant. 7 AM to 7 PM, it's 24 hours a day.
Yeah, the other storage places in town have key access, but when you pull up at 7:05 with your card, you don't get.
Oh, then it doesn't work. Okay,
I mean,
then
that's why we set the hours of operation are set in your system. Where
Okay, then that's how we'll do that.
if you don't make it by whatever time it is, then
Yeah.
you don't get
And
it.
those are the details of the business plan
Gotcha, okay,
that we've been talking about.
I got you.
Just
Okay.
those simple things.
okay, all right, I got it,
And it is sensitive because it's residential on
which
which
is
side.
true, yeah, I understand that, sure, okay.
Now, you obviously mentioned semis not wanting them in there.
No.
but You have just simply trucks here.
It says RV boats,
Somebody's got their
trailers.
classic pickup truck or something, they want some place to put it. We don't know what's gonna be in there that will allow that, but I don't, you want semis in there, there's no room for semis in there.
No bigger than 3/4 ton. 3/4 ton pickup.
Pickup trucks, right,
Yeah, 3/4
pickups,
ton.
yeah, otherwise you got. Yeah, businesses coming in, you don't want that, this is for boats and storage, or for boats and RVs and that kind of stuff.
And that's the reason for the concern about the access to the gate. People have to be on the job site at 7.
So then
They
I
show
go-
up at
yeah,
6 o'clock
exactly,
and to
exactly,
grab all
right.
their stuff.
I
And
understand.
they're banging around, making noise, running the lawnmowers, everything else on their way out.
Right.
That's another one of those
Which we don't
those
want.
details,
Which
because it's
we
a
don't
special
want.
use.
Exactly, I understand, sure.
Why don't we give him that list of the couple other storage, outdoor storage things, have them come back next month with that list, so that way you guys can give them a favorable recommendation with a solid list instead of, because it seems to me that we're pretty.
No,
It's 9:30 and we're gonna be here till 12.
That's why I said, we don't do designing. If you want to give him a sample of that stuff, great.
I think that would be beneficial to everybody up here, and I know you guys, I know that's a standard, so I feel that would be a good idea. If you guys do, I'm just asking.
Well, he needs some assistance. There's no doubt about that.
Perfect. We'll do that. We'll get them, in that way. And again, we already, the steps, for the one lot subdivision and the site plan are gonna be a condition of your recommendation, of your favorable recommendation with that list of hours of operation through yays and nays of what's gonna be stored.
Did you want to continue, Nick, with?
So I just want to make it clear. So you're okay with if we give a favorable recommendation, you're okay with going through the process that we prefer. Goes here, goes to the plan commission, and then you fill all of the requirements of the plan commission and our board before you start operating that business.
Sure.
Okay.
And it's not-
That's what we have to do, right? I mean, that's gonna make.
Well,
you
I mean,
happy,
that's not
yes,
what
sir.
you guys asked at first. I just want to have clarification because we bounce a bunch of different things off each
No,
other here
that-
today, you know? Okay.
Get all this stuff
Yeah.
done the way it's supposed to be done.
I'll give you
Well, from here, Mr. Austin, they have 1 year to get a permit, right?
They do.
They have 1 year to get a permit.
And what happens if they don't get a permit in 1 year?
Has to do
Nothing.
all this over again.
Yeah, the use
They would have to,
expire.
they would have to resubmit.
So from today, he'd had 1 year to get all this done.
Yeah.
That's what you're,
Yeah,
that's what you're
that's-
thinking?
Or is, okay.
Nick, would you consider using the phrase land use approvals, all land use approvals? Or condition or contingency,
Oh, okay.
if you're preparing. Land use approvals,
By the plan commission, right? Or,
you don't know, it might be a town council item,
Yeah.
might have a zoning component that goes to the council. You know, this is going to the council, so that's why I don't restrict to plan commission.
well, do you guys need to discuss this anymore? Because I'm prepared to make a motion.
Make it.
Please do.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the town council for the special use variance allowing the petitioner to operate an indoor and outdoor storage facility for boats, RVs, cars, and trucks no larger than 3/4 ton with the designated amount of spots that the petitioner requested, hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., no entry beyond those hours, and also contingent on a 1-lot subdivision and pending all land use approvals, and to include the findings of fact.
I'll second it.
How about time was it?
It's already started.
1 year.
Yeah,
Here, it's
yeah.
already started.
I
Well,
mean,
that's in our,
Yeah.
that's in our ordinance.
built
right?
in.
That's a given.
it's built in.
So they would have, so you would have 1 year to complete this this project.
I'll amend my second to include the findings of those facts.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to send a favorable recommendation to the town council. Any questions on the motion?
No, sir.
Roll call?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Motion passes 5-0. Your next meeting is the town council meeting next week?
Maybe. Minutes get done, so we have information for the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're sitting or moving? Oh, you're,
what's that?
And,
New business, item number 1, Chorba Developmental Variance Owner Petitioner Jason Chorba, 14733 Ivy Street in Cedar Lake in the vicinity of the same. It's developmental variance to allow the petitioner to have a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence in the front yard of a through lot. Counselor,
legals are in order.
thank you. Do we have a petitioner for this item? Come up to the podium, state your name and address.
Hello, I'm Melinda Chorba. Address is 14733 Ivy Street.
And go ahead with your request.
We're just requesting staff put up a privacy fence, 6-foot vinyl, which technically I thought was our front yard. They're saying our front yard's facing parish.
well, you have a through, what they call through lot, so.
By
Okay.
definition, yeah.
So that confused me. That confused our neighbors as well. They came over and asked us. They thought we were putting it.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but that's all.
Building department?
Traditional for the subdivision.
Yeah,
This-
I
this is-
feel like
this
this is a,
This is gonna be a long parish.
Correct.
in
Correct.
line up, do your neighbors have fences as well? So it's gonna be lined up with your neighbor's fences, same height, same,
So our neighbor has a vinyl fence, but theirs is 4 foot.
okay,
So we were just gonna use theirs and theirs, so the 6 foot would be along parish. Our other neighbor has a chain link fence. So we were gonna do our vinyl fence instead of using theirs.
Okay. Mr. Kubiak, did you have anything for this item?
Same as all the rest,
Mhm.
monthly item, monthly.
Yep.
This, you'll notice there's a couple pictures in your thing there. Like she said, a neighbor does have a 4-foot fence on one side, the chain link fence. The back fence is in that same line as the rest of the fences down that road. So
Any board discussion?
No, sir.
no, sir.
You can have a seat for a brief moment. Are there any remonstrators for or against this variance? Any remonstrators for or against this variance? Any submitted online?
No.
Seeing or hearing none, public portion of this item is closed. Come back up. I said brief. Any other building department comments? Any other board discussion?
No, sir.
This would be a developmental variance, which would be a motion.
You want, you're building on an easement?
No.
No, you're not building on the easement?
You don't even get to give your easement talk.
Aw.
The fence is already constructed over the easement on the back full side. This is not on the easement.
He's connecting the back.
So north-south street.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. But are you going all the way out to the property line? Or to the end of the easement?
So would it be before?
It's
the
the
easement?
property
It
line.
won't be.
It's not in the easement whatsoever.
It's not, okay.
So just to clarify, you got a fence on both sides of you already. Is that what it is?
Yes.
And you just want to connect the back?
Well, we connect the back and the side where there's a chain link fence. Because we don't want the chain link fence as our,
And she's gonna come up the side of the
Okay.
chain link
Yes.
to the back of the house.
Okay.
No, that's a question.
I guess I'm wrong.
No, that's a question. You have a fence along Parish and then one running back up
That's
the,
where she needs the variance for, is just along there.
Okay.
That's how the rest of it is good.
I think Jeff was just going to clarify the fact that fence is in a utility easement and it would.
Well, if it's not, if it's, sounds like it doesn't run to the end of their property.
Right. Yeah, if she's putting the fence that in question where she needs the variance is just that fence along there, she has in the rear yard.
Okay, and that's at the end of her property line or at the beginning of the easement? Both.
Same line.
Said line with all the existing fences out along Parish.
Right. Wait. You can, yeah, if you want to make your.
I think I don't want to get into your mind.
why do you do
that? You're going to be running a fence along the side of your property to the back of your property along Parish.
correct.
Yeah, and so she is. Yeah. She's intersecting the utility easement.
Just
Crossing the utility easement. It's not an issue with us. I think you're going to get approval, but I'm just trying to tell you.
Right. But you're not building anything that's facing east and west. Your fence is going to be to connect from your house to your existing neighbor's fence
Correct.
on both sides.
Correct.
And then along the back of the property along Parish.
Correct.
Okay. But the back of the property line along Parish, that's my question. Does that run through the easement?
No. So this is not.
He's just trying to say if your fence
It's
is
just
going
from
to be,
here to
that
here.
needs to be taken down.
Oh,
Serious
no,
problem.
That's the
there- I know
property
there is
line.
easement, but it's
There's the
not
existing fence. There's the
Correct.
existing-
You're right. You're
This
right.
is
You are
scratched
running-
out.
Exactly. Your property
It's not a
line.
thing.
That's not a thing.
It's not a thing.
I didn't see the hashed out, crossed
It's not a
out.
thing.
It's not a thing.
Oh.
It's west,
It's not a thing.
west of the easement.
Okay.
Well,
Mr. President,
I'll clear
Mr.
everybody.
President, Mr. President, can I
Yes.
make a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this developmental variance, allow petition to have a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence in the front yard of a through lot with the findings of fact.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Kapira, by Mr. Wilkening, second by Mr. Kapira. Are there any questions, comments on the motion in a second? You understand the motion?
Yes.
Okay, roll call?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Gotta come and get a building permit now. Within a year. New business item number 2, Hogeveen developmental variance. Owner John Hogeveen and Carmel Hogeveen. Okay. 7706 West 134th Place in Cedar Lake. Petitioner Carmel Hogeveen, 840 Luther, Chicago Heights, Illinois, in the vicinity of 7706 West 134th Place in Cedar Lake. This developmental variance is to allow the petitioner to add 2 stories to an existing house to make a 3-story house with a 34-foot height. Counselor.
I don't know that we have everything here. I have only one green card. And no mailing slip.
I did mail certified. One of them came back to me just this week.
I need all of those.
And it was the wrong address that you guys had given us. I mean, that was on your record. So I double checked. I did send it to the correct one. And here are,
President, subject to verification of the mailing.
Thank you.
I just had them, give me a moment. Here we go.
And how about the term?
Here, he said it's not there. They had already left last week after we got it.
And we'll start with name and address.
Carmel Hogeveen, 840 Luther Lane, Chicago Heights, regarding address 7706 West 134th Place, Cedar Lake.
Okay, go ahead with your request.
Our request is fairly simple, we hope. We've had the property for many years. It's one of the original smaller cottages. My parents have renovated it 30 years ago. We're looking to renovate it again, elevating it 2 more stories. Primary reason right now is so my sister and I can eventually live there to care for our parents as they age.
Okay, Mr. Kubiak.
As far as the height, I mean, if you look down that row of houses there, I got a couple pictures. I know I've heard they actually own the piece of property. If you look at the second picture, they own the garage space and that piece of property directly across the street, which makes this kind of a lot better situation than the other houses that are next door to them and down the road. So I know I've had a couple discussions with some people about the height of those houses and in that area and the size of them being that tall. But if you look at that streetscape and you look at the size of their house, looks like a little match dollhouse comparatively to the rest of the house.
So just for comparison, the neighbor's houses, how high are those?
I would believe that blue house to the west is really close to that.
Is that considered a 3-story too, that blue house?
Yeah, I believe it has some living space in the attic area. And I think that's kind of their plan also. I mean, the 3-story is, the other house next door is probably 32 feet because it has a steeper roof pitch on it to the right. And then if the one house next to the blue house that's right next door to them is a full-blown 3 stories, if you can see it in that picture, I believe that's about 36, 37.
And we're going standard 8-foot ceilings. So 8, 8, 8, and then the variance for the roof.
Tim,
So I think we're under 34.
I think that one to the right did not get a height variance. So it should be at 30 feet.
It's right at close. Yeah, it's got to be close.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I was eyeballing it with the other one and looking, I mean, but I would guess it's 32 feet close.
We originally hoped to buy the property next to us when it went up, but it didn't happen. So our only option is to go up.
And are you using basically the same footprint as before?
We're using the exact same footprint that's on record. So we purposely tried to work within that and elevate it, so that would be the easiest redirection of that property. So whatever footprint you are looking at, I did give you the plans, that is the exact the ground property.
You're not expanding on the footprint at all.
No.
Any other board discussion?
Not at the moment.
That's only a 312 pitch? And the
Sorry?
roof is only a 312 pitch?
If that's what the blueprint says.
That's awful low.
The five with that little cupola on the side.
Oh, I see. Never mind. I should have seen that.
I thought you guys were going to say an east-west thing when you looked this up to the other person, so I was a little worried about that. But
Where's that 34 measured from?
Street, right?
Straight? In the. Okay. It's the same height all the way around?
You meant the center ridge, yeah, real, I mean, I'd say the backyard is, the back grade at the back of the house is possibly a foot lower than, it's close.
Yeah, because,
It's similar.
you average, so I mean, that brings
Yeah,
it
it's
down.
similar, it's not exact. but,
Brings it down a little bit,
The greenhouse to the west is definitely taller than 34 feet, I believe. Like Nick said, that one next door, I don't think got a height variance, but I would bet you that if you measured that, it would darn close to that.
The blue one? I'm sure the blue one had to get a height variance.
Up to the
The one had
east.
to get the 3-story and the height.
Yeah.
next door, and I believe that was in the same line, so that
Mhm.
33 feet.
I don't know. Who's the property owner to the other side?
And also the green one, that's the other one
Ramirez.
down is taller than.
Ramirez, there was the one we approved in addition with the breezeway
That-
to
that's
the
also
east.
Oh, that's that one.
fairly good.
Does that face the lake?
It does.
Or houses behind you?
There's no houses behind us. We own the whole property behind it, which is just a parking.
So you're not blocking anybody's view.
There's a big hill. There's no homes on the hill behind us. So we're right on, I think it's called Cedar Point. There's no homes behind us. We own the whole property directly back. And then behind that, again, are garages. And then a big hill with no homes.
Is there a reason why you can't go 2 stories total?
I work from home, so we have to allow for office space for me and my sister, so.
So
We're,
it's currently not,
our preference
occupied.
was 3, just to use the space.
so it's currently not occupied.
My parents live there, they're retired there.
Okay.
So they have, we're actually gonna put my father on a different floor. My sister and I, and then office space, so we just want to use the footprint, and I do work from my home outside of COVID.
It's a pretty small footprint of the house.
Yeah.
I don't know how small.
It's 1,000.
House,
Yeah, so once you allow for stairwell, we're gonna lose some square footage.
I have a very big problem with these kind of things going up on the lake. And a lot of it goes back to our master plan. And I feel like we can say all we want about how, it's like this next door, it's like this down the road, but I feel like at times we have gone against our comprehensive plan. I mean, when it makes mention of walling off the views and, I could read you stuff right here on the master plan about having the effect of further blocking views to the lake by massing the buildings that wall off views of the lake, creates a sense of excess density along the waterfront. These are all things we're supposed to be avoiding. So I do have an issue with it.
We're not expanding the footprint in any way.
That's irrelevant, I know.
And we're not, you saw it earlier, there's no homes behind us. Even on the hill, it's a road that goes around. There's no homes on that.
I'm very familiar with the area.
You have an issue with the 34-foot?
Yes. Yep. Because once again, John, just like we're having the discussion now, well, we did it next door, well, we did it down the road. This is gonna happen all along the lakefront. It's gonna happen the next row back eventually. And then what are we gonna be left with? It's gonna happen on every lot.
Mr. Coop, sorry,
Go ahead.
Mr. Kubiak, when I'm looking at this one picture here, the house to the west, is that considered a 3-story home just because there's living space in the attic?
Yeah, and again, I believe when they came into that variance, we made them put that third floor into that attic space for those dormers to try to keep it. Again, I think it was something to do with overall height.
I mean, because it says to add, what does it say here? Add 2 stories to an existing house to make a 3-story house with a height of 34 feet. So 34 feet to 34 feet, I guess. Regardless of 3 stories and then an attic.
I don't think
But that's not,
built in for an attic above that
well, there's got to be some kind of space
for
there.
breathing.
But if the roof pitch is not,
Yeah, but 5
So yeah, the
foot.
blue house
Yeah,
was
okay,
actually, that third floor was actually incorporated into that. So it wasn't, I know the greenhouse was the first 3-story house, which was full-blown 3 stories with the roof on top.
yes,
And
yes.
I believe when they came into this blue house, you know, that, they put that third story in the attic.
We held it down.
Correct.
Yeah, our original goal, like I said, was it was a triple lot open up next to us for years. We've been wanting that. And they sold all 3 lots. So we couldn't go out. We had no choice but to go up.
I understand you have to go up. I just don't like the idea of going up that high.
So we, as it stands, we have the second floor, only 2 bedrooms. My mother on the first floor, my sister and I, second floor, and my father, third floor. So it's just to allow for familial
Oh, I
living.
understand. I understand. I
And then
completely
again,
understand.
office for me, so I can work. 1,000 square foot isn't much to work with, unfortunately.
But my point is that we continue to allow this. It changes the complete landscape of areas like this. It changes the complete landscape of the town. We continue to justify these things. And then 20 years down the road, somebody's looking at it going, what were they thinking? I already have people asking me, well, I can't believe the town approved that. I can't believe the town approved this.
Do they come to the meetings?
I'm sorry?
Do they come to the
No,
meetings?
but I can start having them come to the
They
meeting.
should.
Yeah.
They should.
What is the permitted height?
30 feet, right?
30, I believe.
30 feet
30 feet.
and
30 feet.
no, it's 30 feet and 2 stories. Yeah, and an extra story. 2 stories and 30 feet is what we allow.
So an addition can be built on this property, on this footprint, under our code, just not the third floor.
And single story.
There's a provision for something of a third story. You can have a third story. There is something in there that might.
Well, I know we've allowed a number of 3rd stories as far as walkouts, especially on the west side of the lake, where the property tends to fall off to the lake. You know, or it's still two stories at the street side, you know, in the front,
Lake shows 3.
but then the lake shows too.
Yeah, we respectfully, Mr. Rakupido, if you could keep an open mind. We've been here for 40 years. We've left the property as is, and they're building around us. And, you know, again, we were holding our breath for many, many years, hoping to get the property next to us to go open. As we're all getting older, the thought of going all the way up isn't, the most palatable thing, but it's what we have to work with.
I understand. I just have to defend my actions the next time we hear this from somebody else.
I appreciate
know.
that.
So it's doable at 30 feet.
Tim, I haven't seen it. I haven't read every word of the entire book, but I
Yeah,
haven't seen
Michelle,
anything about the
we
three-story
read
division.
something about the third story. Michelle, do you know where that was in the ordinance, the third story? Can you hear me? Are you still up?
I'm sorry.
You remember where we read something about the third floor, the third story in the ordinance?
Let me look. Hold on.
That's one of the reasons we went with the standard 8 foot instead of going to 9 or 10 foot, which most people are doing, is to keep it a little bit more neutral.
While she's looking, I'll ask you to have a seat for a brief moment.
Thank you.
Though, see if there's any demonstrators. Thanks. Are there any remonstrators for or against this variance? Any remonstrators for or against this variance? Is there any online for this item? Seeing and hearing none, the public portion of this item is closed, and the petitioner can come back up, please.
Ma'am, it looks to me like there's some engineering comments here leading me to believe that this would be totally torn down.
No, the recommendation was that we do essentially like an exoskeleton, like over the existing house. So we frame the exterior of the house. The supporting beams, as I understand, go over the first floor, and that actually presents the support for the second and third floors.
Oh.
And his recommendation for that, that was actually the engineer recommended that before we had the soil sampling. And that was also the same recommendation for after the soil samplings.
So Tim, is there going to be setback issues now if she's building onto the outside of the house? Maybe build 6 inches here.
It's
6
essentially
inches.
gonna be pilings under the existing foundation, but the structure is they're gonna put some structure internally inside of the outside walls of the existing home to carry the weight of the next floor. So they're putting pilings in the ground up through the first house that's their walls, and then that will carry, those pilings will carry all the way down to the earth to carry the second, third floor. So they had engineers verify
Yeah, I see that. I
the
just
ground,
wouldn't-
and but
Yeah.
it won't be any, footprint will be exactly the same.
Okay.
How they're gonna get it in there and do it with the setbacks in the room afterwards, it's gonna be a bit of a challenge, but
That's what the
I'm
plan.
sure they can do it. I know the next door house is still pretty well under construction, where they have a little tighter side yard, but they should be able to do it there.
Yeah, I believe they did a variance to come put
What is
8 feet off the line, 5 feet, but we didn't dispute that.
what is the distance between your house and that new house to the east?
I believe they had a 7-foot side yard, and they got them out of probably a 4, so. For a 7-foot side yard.
How far?
And it's stair steps, so it gets bigger and smaller as it.
How much farther north is your house than the house that's under construction?
North towards the lake.
Yeah.
Are
you a lot forward of that house?
No, they had to come 6 feet back, I guess. I think we're about equal with the front part of the original, the part that they retained. They're building a porch. So I think that's about equal toward the water as we are.
So if the height,
I have that question.
we're allowing 30. What is the 4 foot really getting other than a steeper roof?
34 inverted 3rd story. You need the extra 4 feet to obtain the third story, ma'am?
I don't think we're actually at 34. I feel like it's 30, more like 32, but I couldn't tell on the copy that I had. But I remember adding it up, looking at it, doing 888, and then a little bit on the bottom. And the roof allowance.
And the 888 is really 999.
Yeah, with the line.
Yeah, you know, man, like I said, I got my stance on it. I'm not opposed to 3 stories. It's just the height. You know, if you could manage 3 stories under at 30 feet or under, I don't see anything being a detriment, but it's just that extra 4 feet. And like I said, I have to defend my actions now because we hear these a lot, especially in Cedar Point Park. And I try to be consistent.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of those were the small, narrow lots that didn't give you a lot of room to go. Yeah, you know the area where your grandparents were there, right?
They were around there. You know it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
no,
gave me my
were
very
by,
first job at 13.
oh, okay. They were by Wahlberg Park.
Were they?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could never figure out. I think they were right on the water, a little park, and then sold that. Yeah.
Does everybody else think? Anybody else have any comments?
I mean, I've never been, I've never been in favor of 3-story houses. I mean, I think the only other, the blue one on the corner, you know, and I know there's no room. It's extremely tight over there in Cedar Point Park. And yes, I've been on this board for a while. We're kind of, as Nick says, we kind of create a monster. We've allowed some certain things, but
Mr. Capiro?
Well, I don't see how you can shorten the house any, unless you drop the first floor down into the crawl space, you know. But so when you come in, you walk down. And I don't know how deep that crawl space is, but that wouldn't be feasible.
What do you feel about the request?
Well, you know, I'm a firm believer you got to stick to the ordinance. But that's why this is called zoning and appeal board. And to me, I'm looking at, is there a hardship here? Well, to me, I'm seeing a hardship with the people that are living there, with a couple of them my age, you know. And we have to.
What age is that?
Pretty old.
Just retired.
Late 70s. So and with the houses next to them being what they are, I know Nick's not gonna like that comment. And I kind of agree with him. We can't keep on allowing because that's there. But it's a tough one.
For us, the intent here is truly we're putting an elevator in to make it easier for my parents to use the space. And really, we're hoping we got another 10 years with them. My sister, being a nurse, wants to be able to live there and help care for them. I'll move there probably within a year or so and I sell my house, but we're not doing this for lakefront property for parties. So, I mean, the intent here is to make this family space.
You actually need the 3 stories. I mean, I don't want to get personal with it.
To live the way my sister and I both come from our own homes. She's divorced. My father, you know, my parents' personal space, they have individual personal space. And we're putting an elevator to make it easy for him to have access to space. But we have to lose one of the bedrooms on the first floor in order to allow for the stairwell. So that would put 3 bedrooms and an office on 1,000 square feet.
Just questions, then.
Yeah.
Find out what's what.
So, and I just want you to understand, our intent is not to just make a big party space and have a bunch of people coming out. We did that many years ago with the original cottage, but the intent here is for the next 30 years, my sister and I eventually retire too.
You
don't
mentioned,
need it all in
you've mentioned
15
several
years, but-
times that you don't think it's 34 feet.
Depending on the floor joist, it's about, if they just have regular 2x10 floor joist, it's 32 feet. With a back 12 roof.
What is the house that's under construction? That's a two-story home, the one to the east, it's under
It's 30
construction,
foot. It's right at 30 foot.
right at 30 foot.
By by looking at it comparatively, it's gotta be right at 30 foot. I didn't measure it, but it's gotta be right there.
And her house at 30 foot would be way bigger because theirs is consumed with a garage.
There's is one.
They have a garage in theirs. Her house,
They actually they got 3 times the size of the lot next door. That house is,
Yeah.
the width of that house is, this house is 20 feet wide, and then that little dormer part is another 6 foot, so that house is 26 foot wide. But the part where the main 512 roof is 20 foot, so if you go 10 feet on a 512, that's 50 inches, 27 feet for the 3 floors. That gets you at 31 foot off the ground, so, you're virtually somewhere around the, I think maybe around the 30, be safe.
Yeah, I did the math. I thought we were not over 32. I wasn't sure if it was 30.
Right.
Tim, are basements feasible around this part of the lake? Not really.
It's low,
Low water.
the lake level is so, it's right.
Yeah. I just was thinking you could get more space by going down. That answers my question.
Is 32 feet more palatable, or where you at with that?
I kind of got to stand my ground on this here.
Okay.
And you guys obviously do what you want, but I have, like I said, like I told Ms. Hogan, I have to defend my. Some people have their issues on this board with certain things, lighting.
What?
I don't know if I got fire pits.
fences,
stuff like
lighting,
that.
fire pit,
And this, yeah. This,
or the
this,
lack of.
this, I guess. could be mine.
That's fine. I was just asking because I feel like that was some new information.
Yeah.
34 was requested, but every
I think
numbers are
that's
coming
what
up
they,
32. Yeah, you gotta. That's why
That's my thing, so.
you gotta. Everybody's gotta have a thing.
Yeah.
This. Do we think we have enough to make a motion for a developmental variance? Did you find something there, Mr. Kubiak? Would you like to share with the class?
There was, this is what we have in our supplemental zoning district regulations. 3-story building and 2-story zones. The zoning district's limited height to 2 stories, not to exceed 25 feet, which is now changed to 30. Any permitted structure may be increased in height to 3 stories, not to exceed 35 feet, provided the required side yards are increased additional 1 foot for each 3 feet, and such structure exceeds the 25 feet height. We found that, but again, we.
Translation?
But they still don't have that extra side yard space.
That's the key for building 20 foot straight ups. Elevator shaft, yeah.
Right, so there was something in here to allow for the 3rd story, but you had to have the extra 1 foot of side yard for every 3 foot height, so.
Okay.
Which didn't come into play with this, but I remember we found something that did show where the ordinance allowed that 3rd story for especially, for that.
For reference, what page is that on, Tim? Just so I know, what page is that on?
92.
All right, thank you.
It's under supplementary zoning.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Would it be to your advantage in square footage to change the footprint north and south?
There's not a lot of,
But the house under construction looks like it's,
but the lake kind of.
it's almost on the street. It's about 2 feet off the street.
yeah,
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, we didn't want to extend out and just
Yeah.
kind of lose it. We didn't want the whole lot to be a house. We just want a house.
That's what everybody sees when they drive down there. The
I
whole
know.
lot's a
It looks
house.
like you're gonna drive into it.
It looks like the new condos from the north, one at a time.
So yeah, we did work very hard to try to stay within that footprint.
And what's the width of the lot?
I agree.
I don't really see.
I don't think it's on. I don't think there's. it shows
You
it.
know how wide the lot is? You know how wide the lot is? 35-foot lot?
I think Michelle has 30 foot on the summary.
You're regular.
Tim, you're saying it's 27 feet, right? The floors?
Floors, yeah, with 512, with the 512, they're right at 30 feet.
Well, with 512, you're going up 2.5 feet at the center, right?
50 inches. 10 feet. So 5 inches per foot. The house is
No,
20
you're
feet.
going 12.5 feet, and then you go up. And that's going up 2.5 feet, is it?
Out of 5. The building where the roof is 20 feet wide. So if you go 10 feet at 5 inches per foot, that's 50 inches. Right?
Yeah, divided by 12. It's 2.
Right, divided by 12 is 4'2".
Oh, what am I doing? My phone's on.
Yeah, your fault.
That happens to me all the time.
It's not a smartphone.
Again, I mean, I can appreciate Nick's comments, but at the end of the day, these houses right in this little strip of this property are pretty similar in size. And I mean that, I don't know, I mean, and again, Nick's, the 30 foot to the 34 foot is 4 foot, I mean, it's 4 feet. It's similar to the other houses. I agree. I definitely wouldn't want to see this particular Cedar Point Park completely around the lake. But in the same token, I mean, every house that's come in for this little strip of road is so limited to their, I mean, it's a unique, if there's a place in our town that is crazy, I mean, these lots are from that road to the lakefront I mean, they should have put the road in another 30 feet away from the lake. It's close. I mean, it is what it is. It seems to me though, like looking at that picture of that down the road, you got, there's another brick house that's another 2 houses down, which is that brown brick 2-story house, which is at least in the ballpark of the other ones. But your guys' house is kind of the last one there that's, until you get further down the road. But it's all that whole.
It looks like
That whole area up there. I mean, yeah, it's there. It's not like one of them has been done. I mean, it just isn't. I mean, it's not like there's one 3-story house there and the rest are all small. It's there.
we're the only one.
Yeah. That's just my opinion. That's just an opinion.
Any other board discussion?
No.
Does somebody have the what's,
Getting late, right?
no, I got spinning. What is the side yard? Well, what are the side yards? You have 7 feet? She has 7 feet on one side?
I don't have the survey with me, Jerry, but there's.
You're not close. We're at least 7 or 8 feet on the one side.
The west side?
Close to
The west side,
next to
there's
the blue
probably
house.
8 feet I mean, if I had to guess by being out there's probably 6 foot on the east side and 9 feet on the west side.
Yeah, because he's 5 foot off the line,
According to the
that
plan.
house, and then we're like a couple of feet there.
Okay, I think he's 7 feet. Okay.
Years ago, about 35 years ago, the house was remodeled. Mr. Brennan, that
Oh,
was
God,
the
don't say
town
that.
manager.
He was the town council president, Bob Brandon.
He built them.
I've been the manager too, Bob.
Oh, well, he didn't have that title.
Just saying.
Any other board discussion?
I don't believe so.
Mr. Wilkin?
Tim, that 3-story thing, you had to go narrower or wider
Wider.
to make that fit.
So you had to have it increase your side yard by one.
Which making the
foot.
house has got to be narrower.
Correct, a little away from the side yard line.
But if we're not changing that original first.
I'm
square,
just trying to make sure that what's in the book doesn't fit exactly what you're asking for.
We looked at it, and somebody brought it up, it's been good. We looked at it.
Anything else? Anybody care to make a motion for the developmental variance, which will be a board decision?
I'll make a motion that we approve the developmental variance to allow the petitioner to add 2 stories to the existing house to make a 3-story house with a height not to exceed 34 feet.
We go 32?
Pardon?
I thought we said we can go 32.
Well, then, but the house is going to be built to 34, isn't it?
Whatever is approved, I would imagine.
And again,
Patrick?
the 32 foot is if they have 2 by 10 floor joists. I don't know if floor trusses in, or I have no idea what the construction. Sometimes, if you use a clear span floor truss, you could be up to, in 20 feet, you could be up to 14, 15 inches.
What?
So you can gain another 4 or 5 inches, which is another foot. pretty easy.
Well, they'll have to figure that out. But the height not to exceed 32 feet with the finding of facts,
So you're approving 32 feet?
32 feet.
Do you have a second? We have a motion, do we have a second?
Guys, for lack of a second.
Am I allowed to second? Am I allowed to?
And if you give away the gap.
I'll second the motion. Mr. Bungie, would you please restate in roll call?
Okay, motion on the floor is to approve the variance request as requested for a 3-story house with a height of 32 feet. Any questions on the motion?
No, sir.
Roll call?
No,
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Motion does not pass on a vote of 2 to 3 against.
what do we need to do?
We need to take another motion.
No.
Take
done.
action on the application.
Oh.
That's an adverse.
Yeah, Bill, make sure you have to make your house 30 foot.
30 foot, not even 32. That's completely off the table.
I made a motion for 32 and it was defeated. So the ordinance says 30 feet. That's what they're saying is
But
shrink the
is-
house to 30 foot, right?
Is that a positive action? It's a negative action.
Positive action.
I guess the only question lies is that.
Towards 32 feet.
If they can put their roof, if they can bring their house to 30 foot and still have 3 stories, they still would need a variance for the 3rd floor if they maintain the 30 foot height. So, I don't know if you, I mean, I think they can draw that roof and incorporate, just like the neighbor did, you can incorporate that living space. You know, she can fix that pretty easily without losing a lot of space. You may end up with a 7-foot sidewall that your overhangs on your 3rd floor, but you would still be able to achieve the 3rd floor. I don't know if they're okay with that, but if that was something that could be asked.
Okay, drop the roof to a flat roof.
I mean, I think they could make their house 30 foot tall and a 3-story. If you guys were okay with.
I'm okay with that. And Ms. Hogan, like I said, I don't have a problem with 3 stories, just the height. So if the 3 stories get you all the living space you need for you guys to be comfortable and do it within a 30-foot height, I'm all for that. If Tim thinks it can be done.
So if you can ask them to grant you that variance, I think you'll be able to make a couple tweaks and move forward. That's all that I'm just suggesting.
We'll take what we can get.
But please don't go over 30 feet.
We'll make sure.
My parents aren't getting any younger. We do need to move forward with this project. We're hoping to be,
We can verify when the plans come that, what that floor system is, and, we do the math on it. And see that it is.
So, Mr. Chairman,
You can ask us to check it.
the motion to permit or grant the variance request for 3 stories would be appropriate, because the ordinance already says that
Correct.
Correct.
3 stories with the maximum
3
height.
stories is what the issue.
Okay,
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion.
please.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant the developmental variance to allow petitioner a 3-story house. The property with a maximum height of 30 feet. The findings of fact.
I'll second
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Welkening, second by Mr. Recupido, for developmental variance to allow petitioner to add 2 stories to an existing house to make a 3-story house with a height of 30, max height of 30 feet, and to include the findings of fact. Any comments on the motion? Any discussion? Ma'am, do you understand the motion?
I do.
Okay, roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
No.
Yeah. Yes, motion carries 4-1. A question before we move on to our counselor. I thought, so if we have a motion in a second, and the motion fails, aren't we required to have another motion of,
A failure of the second, I think, is when you would entertain another motion.
okay, so once there's a motion and a second and it's voted on, and it's positive or negative, that's
Positive.
okay.
Yeah, because I thought before, like, if we ever had this situation.
We would have to have a,
Motion to deny it, and then have 3 to-
right, that's what I thought. I thought the next step then would be, pardon?
Did deny it by the motion.
Kind of the same thing, but. I know in the past we've had that situation.
If you
where-
want to take another motion, you can certainly,
Okay.
you've got the gavel, and you're not comfortable with it, it's clear enough, you certainly can. Force another motion.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
No, I guess I'm okay with it. I think I know what happened. Pretty sure I knew what happened.
Cool. I'm still learning. It's all good. Okay, new business item number 3, Hanover School Corporation Developmental Variance, owner petitioner Hanover Community School Corporation, 9520 West 133rd Avenue in Cedar Lake in the vicinity of 10631 West 141st Avenue in Cedar Lake. Developmental variances allow the petitioner to have approximately 300 parking spaces for elementary school with size of 9 foot by 18 foot and have one fire hydrant every 250 linear feet around building. Counselor.
It appears the rules are in order. My suggestion, since you have like a lot, your action be contingent upon verification. My staff, all green cards matching up to all the.
Can I'm sorry, can I get paused just for a moment on this item? I'm looking back at my notes. That previous item should have been contingent on verification of completion or of the mailings.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we verified that,
Now
all
we
right?
have that.
Okay. Okay, let the record show that.
On this
that-
project. Recommendation, make it a condition, verification, writing, file on taxes. There are a lot.
Then one other thing that we talked about at the staff level is that the fire hydrant request should be at the planning commission because it's a utility waiver from the utility standard, not a zoning item
Right,
that should be
yeah.
considered by this board. So just kind of eliminate, we'll deal with that at the planning commission with their site plan. I don't think there's gonna be any issues with it, but you guys don't really, it's not a zoning, it's not a zoning thing.
All right, now we have a petitioner.
Scratch that out.
Thank you. Don Torringa with Torringa Engineering, 907 Ridge Road, Munster, Indiana. I'm the engineer for the project. Deon Katsoris is with Skillman Corporation. We also have online Jim Thompson with Gibraltar, who is the architects for the project. As Tim said, we were told when we originally did the application that the fire hydrants was not something that was going to come up. So that's not something we're even asking for. What we are asking for are 2 variances from your parking ordinances. The 9 by 18 is a misnomer. We actually have 9 by 20 spaces throughout the site. There are no 9 by 18 spaces. Everybody should have been given 2 drawings that I did, which the first one depicts, they're on 11 by 17 paper. The first one depicts exactly as is shown here, the number of parking spaces that are required by your current ordinance, which is 1 space for every 2 students, and then 1 space for every employee plus 10% of the employees. So that total for that ends up being 750 students, gives us a total of 441 spaces that are required for this site. The school corporation believes that 441 is excessive, and they're therefore asking for a reduction to 266 spaces. If you take the existing middle school, which currently has 279 total spaces, after the additions that are being proposed, there will be 363 total spaces for the middle school, which is this drawing and this building. The building to the north, that exists. With the elementary school, the 441 spaces being reduced to 266, added to the 363 brings us, I believe, to 629 total spaces for the entire site if the variance is granted. What Gibraltar has done, and each of you should have one of these packets also, is they outline on the first page what the 2 variances were and the reasons for asking for these 2 variances. Part of it is for cost savings to the School Corporation. The other response that they have on here is that their formula, which was asked of me at the Plan Commission, is that they only need one space for every 3 students, which reduces it down to a total of 250. We are adding an additional 16 for a total of 266. On the drawings that were done within this packet, pages 7 and 8, if you would look at those, please. Those are the middle school and the middle school improvements, showing the additions that are being proposed to the middle school. There will be a cafeteria, a new gymnasium, and additions to the music room. If you flip to pages 12 and 13, 12 lists the elementary school and the number of classrooms with a breakdown of what each of those classrooms are. 13 is a schematic floor diagram of what the proposed building is to be. With that and the lateness of the hour, I am going to stop talking and entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kubiak.
I know we had this discussion at the Plan Commission. John wanted to know the formula that the school came up with for the parking space, which he brought. And I agree with we had the conversation about, there should probably be some different requirements in our ordinance for an elementary school to a high school.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. How did the
There is
town come
no-
up with the,
Right, we have the same requirements for a school. So it just, we don't have anything broken down into an elementary school or a high school, so we just
In-
have school.
in the reason the town went to, or one space for 2 students was possibly assuming it would be needed for driving students.
Well, again, we don't have it broke down, so yes, it's for a school. So in theory, being at a high school would obviously require more parking space than an elementary school. So, I feel that with the amount of space and the area of the school that, the money to put in the parking lot, that often is on the parking lot, I think that 263 spaces is adequate. I know we all know intimately the Jane Ball School because it's right in the heart of town there, and I know that when they have their functions, those couple nights a week, Jeff knows, everybody knows that they have 0 parking. Yeah.
Okay, so.
It's a big difference.
Thinking of
formats. If you consider that middle school parking and the actual area there that is affected, isn't you know what I mean? If people had to park down the sides of the road or whatever once a year, which I don't think they would because of the middle school. So I feel that the reduction is a fair thing to ask.
What do you feel about the shrunken spaces?
The sizes that our current Stratton Van Til is 9 by 18. So we've had several businesses come in over the years to ask for that reduced size of parking. Obviously, if you have a big car, 10 by 20 is nice, but 9 by 18 spaces are pretty much the standard throughout Northwest Indiana. So the 9 by 20, again, I don't think it's like I said, the Strax parking lot is 9 by 18 spaces, which they received a variance 4 years ago. So if that, everybody's pretty familiar with that.
I think we've granted 9 by 18s or 9 by 19 many times in the past.
Is the spacing between, like the lane, the drive lane between the spaces going to be consistent with what you would have for a 9 by 20? So you can make that swing with a larger vehicle? So what's going to be the width of these lanes?
Are you talking about the drive lane? the
Yeah,
drive aisles?
in between rows of parking spaces.
What we've laid out here are 9-foot wide spaces, 20 feet deep, 25-foot drive aisles, and then 20-foot by 9-foot. So there will be a bank of lots, a bank of parking on each side of the drive aisle for a 25-foot drive.
Okay. Is that consistent with the grocery
24
store
feet, I
thing?
believe, is a requirement for the 10 by 20 spaces. So, and they're keeping the depth 20 also. So.
Right. Okay.
And I might be wrong on that. That might be 24. But I think it's 24. Either way, 24 is your requirement.
Thank you.
Okay, they're using one space for every 3 students. How did they arrive at that 3?
I think you said, didn't you state, Tim, it's one for 2, every 2 students? One for every 2 is at the high school or
That's-
what have you. This is an elementary school. We agreed that they should have,
Our rule is 1 for every 2 students. He said the school corporation standard was 1 for every 3 students. That's how they came up.
that's their standard? I didn't hear that part.
Yes.
That's the school corporation standard is 1 for every 3?
That's what they generally accepted.
That's
school
what I wanted to
planning
know.
Best practice.
I just want to know how they got that 3.
And that's from Gibraltar.
That Gibraltar does.
Who
practically
yeah, who
does
made
nothing
that
but
standard?
schools across the entire state.
That's a state standard.
No,
Okay, can
No,
you
it's a-
clarify whose standard that is? Are we pulling numbers just to make,
I'm Dion with the Skilling Corporation. Construction manager for Hanover Schools. Gibraltar Design has done many schools across the state, and for elementary school, that's the typical standard.
so it's Gibraltar's?
Correct. That's the recommendation that they provided the school corporation. School corporation agreed to it.
So there's not a school corporation standard that Hanover follows. It is your recommendation to the school.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And what I will say is comparing it to other elementary schools I've done locally, I mean, many times I've seen somewhere between 180 to 220 as an example. On a typical 180 year school day, the staff and aides and everybody else there, you'll see 50 to 60 parking spots utilized. Now, it's for special events, maybe 4 to 5 times a year that you need that access parking.
All right, thanks for clarifying.
And the chances of both the new elementary school and the middle school having a large event at the same evening is probably pretty small, I would think.
We actually had a conversation with the superintendent and just, pointed out that would have to be something that would be coordinated amongst the principals, just to make sure that they don't have special events the same evening. But to your point, probably pretty rare. Like a grandparents' day in an elementary school shouldn't conflict with something that's going on in middle school.
Why do they have to take a foot away from the parking? Why do they have to drop it to 9 from 10?
because of the cost, for every 20 spaces, you have to add 20 more feet.
Oh, yeah,
Which is
but
20 more feet of
you're
asphalt.
knocking off, how many spots? 200? You're losing 200?
What I didn't add before is that the current middle school is 9 by 20. 9 foot wide, 20 foot deep. It all has to do with what they feel is necessary, what is accepted.
Who's they?
The school corporation.
Okay. Thank you.
They do not feel they need more than 266 spaces. That's what they've agreed to. That's what they have had discussions with Gibraltar, Skillman, and myself about. The 9 by 20 spaces are more than adequate, and it reduces the amount of pavement that's necessary, which reduces the cost of the overall cost of the school.
If we did the 10 by 20 spaces, they would lose 26 spaces of the 266.
Right.
So
I understand the math.
just for a do over, Mr. Tringa, parking that would be gotten rid of is at the elementary school on the north side,
Well,
or is it going to be?
drawings that I had submitted to town, there were 2 of them.
Yes.
The first one was the 441 spaces, that was labeled C2.0. Second one was C2.0A, for alternate. And it shows exactly where the spaces will be.
Mr. Trig, I don't think they can see that.
Can you put it in front of the podium on the provided chair? That's much better. Thank you.
The spaces that are being removed are a complete bank, like right here,
Along the west side.
on the west side, parking right here, in front on the north, and a bank on the east side.
No, they're getting rid of the row.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's your proposal for the 260 for what you're asking for? This is 266.
The first one here. Enter that in mind. This is in accordance with your requirement. This is an extra spaces here. This extends further, and then the whole bank along there. That is being used.
So as far as you know, getting rid of these spaces won't hinder the staging, the drop off, none of that stuff. The lane coming off 141st is going to have another lane. There's going to be 3 lanes there.
The lane coming off 141st.
To the north.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so there's a drop off, there's a lane being added, so we don't have traffic all piled up on
Right.
141st.
That doesn't affect it at all. None of
Well-
that is in that.
No, I just want clarification that those parking spaces won't be some places for cars to stop or go or drop off won't be backed up out on the road because the traffic issue as it exists on 141st now is kind of unacceptable in the mornings.
As far as I know, that will not be an issue.
Take a look at page 3 of your packet. You should have received. I mean, it has a very high-level overview of the site and roadway concept. That will show you kind of where the drop-off drive and parent drop-off, bus drop-off, how that's proposed right now.
Oh, so the traffic flow is onto 41 and onto 141st.
It's both, correct. But and a lot of the traffic actually, many of the cars end up getting fed onto the actual upper elementary school parking lot. So there'll be 2 ways of means of access.
Great, you can drop off at the middle school and drop off the elementary school.
Right.
Very briefly, this portion in the upper corner actually adds on to the top because the paper was the parking lot. This is 141st. There are 2 lanes coming off 141st. The third lane is being added. As was mentioned before. As you come down the entrance road, it widens before you get to this, which does not exist now. This is an addition to the main road. All that exists right now is this. This road is being widened for 36 feet up to the entrance to the parking lot. In addition to the parking lot at the elementary or the middle school. The roadway is 24 feet wide. Turns behind the middle school, in front of the elementary school, all the way out to the 41. In addition, you will see that there is coming through the parking lot here at the middle school. There is a 12-foot one-way drop off and pickup for the parent. This is the queue into this, you can probably put 100 cars. Exactly the same thing here around the end. 12-foot drop off and pickup queue where people will sit and wait until the children come out and then they will run the time.
So that engineering design should eliminate cars backed up on 141st.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other board discussion at this time?
No, sir.
So you're not at this point, obviously, or any other point asking for a variance in parking space quantity or size for the maintenance building or the administration center?
No.
Any other board discussion?
Yeah, what did you say about the fire hydrants?
That's not going to be under consideration for this board.
Well, actually, If you want me to go into that, I will, because.
No, I just want to know,
But no,
because
what I said is we were told that it was not something that should come to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
that's fine. Because if a motion is made, I want to know if it has to be included in the motion or not, and
No.
it does not.
Does not.
That's
You
all
can
I
just
wanna know.
cross out where it says and to have 1 foot and everything behind that. On the request.
So the actual number of parking spaces requested is 266, not 441.
The required number of parking spaces is 441.
Right.
The drawing that we did here, the first one, is 445.
Okay.
We are asking for the 441 requirement to be dropped to 266, which is C 2.08.
Just for the elementary school.
Correct.
So
In the request is, it says approximately 300.
that's why I was asking.
Right, this little
Because
bit.
it was all drawn on there, so.
So it's actually, it should read,
260.
allow the petitioner to have 266 parking spaces for the elementary school with a size of 9 by 20.
Yes,
As
that's my
reflected-
understanding.
As reflected on this specific sheet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. I'll ask you to take a seat for a brief moment, please. Thank you. Are there any demonstrators for or against this variance? Any for or against this variance? Any online? Think about it. No. None online, none submitted. Okay, seeing none, the public portion of this item is closed. You guys can come back up. Thank you. Any other building department comments?
I shut down at 10:30.
So that's a hard no from the building department. Any other board discussion?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, this is a developmental variance, which will be a board decision, and per our counselor, that it be conditioned on verification of mailings, and that the parking spaces requested be numbered at 266 and to have at 9 foot by 20 foot. Clarifications.
Chairman, and I would also suggest that this action be contingent upon all of the land use approvals being granted. It's a little unusual, we're getting this small piece out of this big project here before the BZA. There's PUD that exists for the current middle school property. And this is going to be the subject of an amendment to the PUD that will incorporate this parking plan, schedule, etc. So.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, if we use the standard statewide acceptable practice of 1 per 3, we get what number by formula?
250.
250. Okay. And you're proposing 266.
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
I'm like, damn, I shut down after 10:30.
Somebody can't, not everybody can shut down. We gotta bring it to the finish line.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion, we grant the developmental variance, allow the petitioner to have 266 parking spaces for the elementary school with a size of 9 by 20 and contingent on all land use approvals with the findings of fact.
And verification of mailing.
Verification of mailings.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Wilkening, a second by Mr. Bungie to grant the developmental variance to allow petitioner to have 266 parking spaces for the elementary school with a size of 9 foot by 20 foot contingent upon land use approvals granted and verification of mailings, and to include the findings of fact. Any discussion on the motion or the second? You
No, sir.
understand the motion?
Yes, I did.
Roll call.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any public comments? Yes, sir.
I have a question. I hate to bring this up at such a late time, but I need some clarification on, we're talking earlier tonight that you have 1 year to get a building permit when a variance is approved.
Yes.
I'm reading something in the book now. I'm no expert at this book, but it says in here, any approved variance shall become void if the variance is not exercised within 90 days after being granted.
I don't think that's been changed.
Yeah, we changed, there's an ordinance where it was changed, was there, when Chip?
Yeah.
We can change it to 1 year.
So this book was given to me 4 years ago, so you guys have a newer book then?
There's an amendment to that.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
We do a codification on the ordinances, and the book hasn't been updated.
Okay, I'd like to get my hands on it if I could. But, so with that being said, I know of projects in town that haven't had any work done to them in a year and a half, that came to this board and there's nothing going on.
But did they get a building permit after a half a year? Because then,
I know of at least one that did not,
okay, then they shouldn't be able to do it.
so they would have to come back to us.
Correct. So if they were granted their variance, they would have 1 year to act on it, which means they have to get a building permit, and then the building permit lasts for a year.
Okay.
So,
We had that a couple times with those little houses, there was a couple of them that came in, a year, and they, or 13 months after the fact, and they had to redo it.
Okay.
so the fact that nothing's been done in a year and a half doesn't mean he didn't pull a building permit
Yeah, so
6 months after he got the variance.
So the permit has to be full paid for within a year.
Yes, and then
That
the
gets longer.
permit lasts however long,
Okay.
which is a year.
Okay. So I know the properties, and it's something we need to get together at some point and have them reapply for a variance.
Well, it should be flagged when they come in for a building permit when they try to act on it.
Okay.
So if it's been over 12 months and they try to get a building permit, you guys
Yeah,
should,
when we approved that building permit for all these variances that come in, there's a space below the permit for things that are not permitted that need a variance, and there's BZA approval, date, so and so. So on that permit, it'll say, BZA approved January, whatever, permit issued June, whatever. But if that 12 months is lapsed, then
they shouldn't get through your
so
permanent
if they
thing.
don't ever act on it. If they get a variance granted and they never act on it, that's a possibility. They may never do it. Some people come in and, get something, we never see them again.
Yeah. So that's, the check and balance is on that paper that you're talking about.
Correct. yeah,
There's
we
a space
can't-
for this date and a
that's why
space
they
for
were
that
here to
date.
get a variance, so they cannot, that's why they were denied the building permit in the first place. So, they come in, when they come in, Tammy puts that approval letter in with the data. We did change it, it was 90 days and we had, back in the, before, it was years ago, but there used to be a lot of people that didn't get here within 90 days. It was like.
I'm sure it's tough for a lot of people.
It was a regular occurrence. It was quite often that people.
And there was a reason for that.
Right.
That 90 days is in that book for a reason.
Right.
It goes back to the days long before any of you were here, that things would be be applied for, or there'd be some activity, some repair, some placement, something. That was the kick in the ass term.
They're done.
That was in that ordinance. Why? We had a lot of stuff just people starting. A lot of waste of time, a lot of waste of resources. So that was.
So we're at a year now.
Now it's.
Changed it. I mean, it's been, I know Tim Keifer, it's been quite a while. Cheryl took a copy of that ordinance. Tammy, we're all good.
Good question. Yeah,
Tammy doesn't quit at 10:30.
okay. Please, this is the time.
Okay, I got everybody. First of all, thank you for your accommodation tonight of changing the meeting half an hour. Things happen in the community sometimes, and it happened this week, so thank you for doing that. The business here was incredibly important tonight. So just casually canceling or moving it, probably not as easy as it looked or sounded. So anyway, please know that's appreciated. Secondly, is our meeting scheduled next year the same, second Thursday? I didn't see the next date. Maybe Jill or Tammy for that on the agenda. The January 2021.
It currently is. Council's approved, has the meeting schedules for their meeting next week. So
Okay.
As a timing matter, except for the one meeting in
November.
November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to all note that. Thank you.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder. I was also gonna thank all the board members, petitioners, demonstrators, you guys for being willing to move the meeting time and accommodate for, somebody that deserves some of our attention. So I thank you guys for doing that and appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Rick Eberly. You acted on the total number of parking spaces, the reduction on the number of spaces. I didn't hear any action on their request for smaller spaces, the 9x20s instead of the 10x20s.
Yes, that was in the motion.
It was?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other public?
He corrected it, but we still had to say it,
Right.
because that's why it
It was in
needs to be written.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a tail end.
Right, everybody hear that? Am I good? Okay, okay, good. Okay, we're on a roll. Anybody else? Got any good? Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a good New Year.
Make a motion, we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Bungie, second by Mr. Kapira. We'll give it to him. To adjourn, all's in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Adjourned at 22:58. Is there any press?